So this is my last shot for a video for Denise. So hello everybody, I'm Peter. So I'm the founder of Gizmo Engineering. About 20 years ago, I started in my garage, actually, like a lot of great businesses. And yeah, in the meantime, we've developed a lot of things. So this was the first product that I developed. I was a process engineer in charge of the plating area, and we needed a drum level alarm. Or I needed a drum level alarm, because if the etchant drum ran empty, it was 3 days. The whole process sludged out. I mean, you just scoop it out manually, and it was 3 days. The plant was filled with ammonia fumes to the point where people couldn't enter the production area. It was a nightmare. So I looked around for something that would solve the problem, and I didn't find anything. There was basically floats, naked floats on the end of a stick with some wires coming out of the top. And to me, that wasn't a solution. The maintenance department was dreadful. They didn't know how to wire it into an alarm. So anyway, I created something like this in my basement. And what it is, it's 2 tubes. It's one tube. The alarm pipe on this side has a float switch on it. Oops. And the other side is the suction tube. So obviously, a feeding pump would draw liquid through the suction pipe, and there's a flow meter there to kind of, it's where you can monitor the flow, and it's got a screen in the bottom and possibly a check valve. But anyway, and obviously this is just a model for travel purposes. It's going to be like the depth of the drum or IBC possibly. Anyway, when the level goes low in the drum, it just goes into alarm, and that's the only thing it does, and does it really well. And there's still nothing like it. If you look around, we're the only ones who make anything like this. And the key is this little piece of plastic actually makes it possible, because without this piece of plastic, the maintenance gorillas are for sure going to damage this. They're just going to smash it into a hole, and it'll last about a day or two. So this but once you put this float guard on there, nothing happens to the float. In 20 years, I've never had anybody say they damaged a float. So, yeah, and some other things about it. So the level, you just adjust the level in the drum like that. And the important thing to know is that the 2 pipes are welded together. And so, to me, it never made much sense to have just the alarm only, because then the operator has the discretion to possibly use the alarm, or maybe one day he decides he doesn't want it. No, you have to take discretion away from the operator and have both pipes in the drum, and have the suction pipe at the right level. It's got to go to the bottom. Otherwise, you'll be sucking air. And the float switch has to be matched to the suction pipe. They have to be together. So that's the whole idea behind this drum alarm. And so I'll just let you, yeah, if you just want to play with it. There'll be lots more stuff to play with. So that kind of gave rise to, and I guess I should say that half of the alarm pipe, half of it, that's our tank alarm. That's just kind of a product on its own. And then the suction pipe.
I appreciate that.
And we sell the suction pipes. We also sell those alone too. I always prefer to see it in that format, but we'll sell whatever the customer asks for. And then after we started selling tank alarms, we got requests for tank alarms for hazardous locations. And that's what this is. So and usually people want stainless steel in hazardous locations. So what this is, this is a drum alarm again. So and what we do is, again, same idea, float switch and a float guard, which is fastened on with a set screw. So it just, assembles like that. And the float guard just stays on this all the time. But the important point is, again, that this will fit into a 3/4 inch bung. And to my knowledge, it's certainly the only drum alarm that goes into a 3/4 inch bung that has a protected float. So, and in fact, this is a custom-made float for us that actually Denise is going to list on the website as a component. But yeah, there just weren't any small enough, so I just had a manufacturer make them for us. So same idea. This alarm sounds a little bit different. This is a high-level alarm, so So, and it's, so it alternates flashing and beeping, that's the silence button there. And this has some behaviors to it. It can alarm for a while, and then it's like a snooze alarm is what we call it. If you silence it, it'll sound again in 30 minutes, which is kind of handy. You want to kind of nag the operator so that they don't forget about it. That's a feature that can be enabled or disabled. I'll show you how we do that. So this is the tank alarm version. It looks almost the same as the drum alarm version, but it's just got a larger diameter pipe so that we can get a mount. I'm kind of ahead of myself, but so you can have a compression mount with a 1-inch NPT that would go into a 2-inch tank mount. But anyway, the behaviors that I want to show you are here. So there's some dip switches inside of this that allow you to select various behaviors. So one of them is the snooze alarm. You can enable or disable it. You can have so in some cases when trucks are filling bulk tanks, they just want one alarm to let them know that to stop pumping into the bulk tank. And then they'll acknowledge the alarm, and then the whole thing goes to sleep for maybe a month or two until the next fill up. So that's one behavior. Or you can have it continue to alarm. You can have the light continue to flash, and no buzzer. You can have the buzzer come back again or not. So there's lots of flexibility in what you can have it do. And you see there's some mention about a relay output. So this has a relay output in it too. And that's basically, I'll just put this, I think I'm done with that. So the relay output is through a circular connector like this. That would be mounted on the side of the enclosure. And then obviously it'll go through an intrinsically safe barrier and to whatever controls the customer would want on the safe side of the intrinsically safe barrier. So that's a bit about. So there's other formats too. Sometimes if it's a really tall tank, people will want instead of having something like that on a self-contained unit on the top of the tank, they'll want just a level probe on the top of the tank, and then a shut-off box down at operator level, so that everything's operated from ground level. So that's another. And we sell that this box is a separate product. In this case, it's connected to our level probe, but it doesn't have to be. It can be connected to any switch. It could be a thermal shutoff switch. It could any kind of simple apparatus in the hazardous location will work. So the alarm box that's just another product, and it has all the same behaviors that I just went over with that guy. So and the way we adjust all of our depths is I like the just kind of a compression mount that slides up and down. So that way you don't have to specify the exact depth of the probe. We go in 12-inch increments. Well, actually that's a 6-inch and 12, 18, 24. So that way your customer doesn't have to, they can just approximate. Let's see, what else should we talk about?
Somebody was going to do it. I just don't want it to be me.
I'm done going use this table.
All right.
This is a full group. And then water gets up here.
Then it's when it overfills. Yeah.
Oh, this is an overfill.
Yeah, that's the overfill.
That makes
That's
sense.
why it does that.
Right.
Yeah, and the float switches are reversible, by the way, but so it's just a matter of pulling the clips off and inverting the float. So let's see. So this is kind of a similar idea, a float switch which is protected inside of a guard, as always. That's the only way we sell any float switch, to me, it's just stupid to sell an unprotected float switch. It's irresponsible, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So anyhow, this one is a level controller. So basically it's, right now this light bulb represents like a solenoid valve that would be turned on, or possibly a pump. And as the level in the tank rises, it's just going to push the floats upwards, and then it's going to shut off the filling, and then it'll just repeat that indefinitely. So you'll kind of forget that this controller is even there, unless something goes haywire. Like if this top float were to rise and the bottom one does not rise, well, obviously that's impossible condition, so you get an alarm. Or if it overfills, that the tank overfills for any reason, same thing, you get an alarm and a redundant shutoff. So I just believe in safeguarding things. So to me, it just makes sense to have a redundant shutoff. It just, why not? So there's another variant of this. So float switches I love float switches. They're very reliable. They're does everybody know how the principle behind float switch, like the reed switch, and how that all works? Yeah, I'm saying yes, but maybe a couple of no. Yes, no. All right, we'll just take a quick look. So, oh, here we are. We got it right there. So that's a reed switch. So that's inside of the stem of the float, and then basically you have two metal pieces basically that are overlapping, and then the magnet in the floating cylinder pulls them closed or open. And this is a evacuated chamber glass ampule, so there's no oxidation that can happen. They're usually platinum, sputter deposited platinum contacts, so they're not going to oxidize. And the result is that they're good for tens of millions of cycles. They're extremely reliable. But yet there's a kind of a thought out there, oh well, float switches aren't reliable. They're very reliable. The problem is that they get, if you have where's that triple float switch, they can get pushed against the side of a tank, like they get physically dislodged, and they just contact the side of a tank, and then they get hung up. That's why they fail. But this float guard stops that. So, and you see out there conductivity sensors, these metal sticks. I don't know if you've seen those for level control, and that's all because, and my theory is that they came up with that method because they didn't think of a float guard, and they're less reliable than floats. We can argue about that later, but that's my belief, is that floats are more reliable. But floats don't always work all the time. There's some solutions are sludgy, or they crystallize, or they scale, or they deposit for whatever reason, and so sometimes it takes a different technology, and that's what this is. This is a capacitance, or capacitance level sensor. So inside of this tube, that's where the capacitance sensor is, and you can see there's no opening or anything. It's just like a solid rod, basically, and it senses. The plastic is invisible to the sensor. So as is any crystal buildup or anything that might scale on the tube. So it'll sense through that, and I'll just demonstrate it. So it's gonna, with my hand, there's the blood in my hand, that's a liquid, so it's gonna sense through my skin, through the plastic, and then it's just gonna go into alarm. Yeah. So it's good to know about this. Is a really unique, I think we're the only ones who do this. We're not the only ones who use capacitance sensors, of course, but the problem is, people usually take a capacitance sensor and they sense through the sidewall of the tank, which sort of works, but you're on the hairy edge of its sensing range. If the tank wall is a half an inch thick, that's right away puts you right at the limit of what the capacitance field can sense. And then if there's a scale on the inside of the tank wall that keeps the liquid even further away, or if the tank wall bows or warps over time, or if it's not touching, pressed right against the tank wall, like a lot of things can happen to make them fail that way. This is more reliable because it's only sensing through a very thin amount of plastic. And it can't bow or warp or become dislocated. So to me, this is the best way to do it. So that's something to know about. and this is a single point, of course. We have, you know, we can equip it for level control. You need two of these, one for low level turn on and shut off at high level. So anyway, and I guess, well, still on the subject of level, I guess this will be the last thing for liquid level. So this is a kind of a newer innovation for us. So it's the same kind of idea. It's just a float switch alarm, battery powered, and it just, you know, it does one thing only, and then when the level gets high, it goes into alarm. But this is good for like open tanks, especially, well, most useful in the plating industry where they have hoists and baskets traveling overhead. So it's out of harm's way, takes up almost no tank space, and so it's an inexpensive emergency overfill alarm, which happens a lot in open tanks, like the electric cleaning industry. There's a lot of industries where they use open tanks and they're filling it up with hoses, believe it or not, and operators forget, the hose keeps running, and you can lose a $200,000 silver tank, you know, due to an overflow. So why wouldn't you spend $180 for this to protect a tank that's worth, you know, a lot of money? So that's something to know about too. Let me talk about timing, I guess. You have some timers on for sale on the JME website. So this is just a really basic, simple timer. It's like a kitchen timer. You just press the button to start it, and it counts down. But it's really meant to be a process timer, and the reason is because it does that. It calls people over to a process, an oven or tank or whatever, before the end of the cycle, which right now doesn't seem like very useful, but if it's a 2-hour-long cycle, that really matters. So, and you can see there's an over count there too, so it lets you know if you've gone over. So yeah, that's pretty much pretty basic, simple, glorified kitchen timer, if you will, but it's waterproof and corrosion proof, and it's part of the de facto standard in the plating industry.
You use 2 hours as an example time. I
Yeah.
mean, is there like a bigger one that can actually display 2 hours, or?
Yeah, well, that will display, you know, up to 99 hours, yeah.
Oh, was that hours? Okay.
Yeah, well, no, okay, there's a setting inside. You can choose, you know, minutes, seconds, or else hours, minutes.
Okay, all right.
So yeah, it goes up to 100 hours, basically. Let's go to, oops. And there's a lot of behaviors built into that too. Well, we'll go into that in a second. So that's the smallest timer. This is the largest timer, so it's got 7-inch diagonal. You know, some people just want it larger, so for you know, whatever reason. So we've sold some of these, but I'll show you now the middle of the range. So. So this one has it's the same idea, but it's oops, let me set the time down a bit. Yeah. So this one has two things. It's got a stack light, that's an option some people want, and it's also got a sensor. This is connected to an inductive proximity sensor. And so the idea, but this could be an ultrasonic sensor or a mechanical switch. Well, you know, it can be triggered various ways, but what I'm going to do is just trigger it with a piece of metal. That's what inductive sensors do. And as before, it's just counting down, and the early warning will be on the yellow stack light, so right there. And at the end of the cycle, the operator cannot push the button to silence it. In this case, the firmware is such that you have to open the switch like that. That's the only way to shut it off, which some people really want. It kind of builds a level of automation into their process, which, you know, so you don't have to rely on an operator to push the button. So yeah, the button doesn't do anything. It doesn't start the cycle. It does allow you to program the time though. So and it's waterproof. Like basically everything I'm talking about today is waterproof, and yeah. So that's the T, and actually the model number is pretty simple. That's a 4-inch enclosure, so that's the T4. This is a 5-inch square box, so it's our T5. and that's the T7, and then the T6 is, well, I'll let you guess what the enclosure size is there. So, let's see what we want to talk about. How about, I don't think you guys do a lot with pH, but it is on your website, so I'll just spend a short time talking about pH. So this is a pH controller, and whoops, let's see here. Oh, all right. So this is a simulator. I have this box, so it's just basically we use it to check the accuracy of the display. So you can see they're both reading 6.82. So, but anyhow, if the pH does get out of range, it starts to make additions of acid in this case, and then after it's done, it'll just come back into range, and that's what it does. It just controls the pH. But if it ever gets out of range, then you get the alarms that you just heard. So I think you're kind of getting the idea that everything we sell has an alarm on it. If it's worth monitoring or measuring, to me, it's got to have an alarm. So, and it's actually a pretty innovative feature. Believe it or not, there are no other pH controllers that have an alarm built in. All of them have an alarm output, but I've yet to walk into a factory where I've seen anyone connect that output to an alarm. And even if they do connect it, how do you shut it off? You have to go into the sub menus and possibly jump past a password in order to silence it. That doesn't make any sense. So here it's just one button, which actually should be labeled silence, but in this demo it's not. Just a button to put to silence it, and it's very intuitive and easy for an operator to use. And there's also some buttons on the side that allow you to control the additions. Let's see, we'll get it back out of, okay. So there, so if it's in range, the lab technician can just push the buttons to force the pump on to calibrate it, or make manual additions if they want. This one also has some features inside, so it's really unique because first of all, it's got an alarm, but it also has an onboard data logger. So a lot of DECs around the country wants to see data logging. Sometimes it's a requirement. So this obviously just plugs into a computer, and you can just download the record of what the pHs have been to prove compliance, for example. And this one also has a Wi-Fi communication module that'll send emails or text messages, and it uses the company Wi-Fi, which is way better than 5 years ago, the way to do it. Yeah, go ahead.
What's the pH range?
Well, I've set it here, so I've set it, you can set it to whatever you want, but.
So it can go from 0 to 14?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah. Yeah, so I just set the alarm points for, I think it was 6 to 8, or the addition points 6 to 8, so just for this example. But setting it, I chose this module for a couple of reasons. The large display I like, but it's super easy to set too. And there's a video on our website. There's videos for pretty much everything, including one, just for setting the pH, and then another one for adjusting the offsets, and like there's videos for everything. Unfortunately, they're by me, but anyway. So that Wi-Fi module, yeah, I was saying 5 years ago, the way to do it would have been with a cellular communications module, which is really expensive. I mean, $60 a month. So now that Wi-Fi, I've kind of decided that it's ubiquitous in factories. It's a no-brainer. It's once you log on, it's free. So why not use Wi-Fi? So there's no monthly subscription. And you see it's small enough, so that's the size of it there, just that chip. So it can go into any of our products. So this one happens to have it, but it can go into our timers, it can go into this guy. It can go into pretty much any product we sell, except for the Intrinsically Safe products, because it has not been not applied for a certification. So that's so it doesn't just go there. And by the way, all of these products, they all come with a 2-year warranty. It's all causes. Yeah, it just doesn't matter, whatever failure mode, gets covered. Just talk a little bit about temperature. You know what? Let's go to back to tank level. Let's see. Come on, where is it? Why am I not finding it? Tank level. Oh my God. Liquid. Here we go. Okay, so this is a liquid level gauge, and you can see it's got the familiar stack light on top of it. This one works with the radar sensor. That's my preferred sensing method, so that's that. To me, it's just a better way to go than submersible pressure sensors is also a way some people like to measure level in the tank. So we have those two, but radar is just it's easier to install. There's no asking the customer what cable length do you want and what chemicals in the tank. So I really favor radar, and basically the way it works, the radar sensor is connected to this box, and it gives you a readout from 0 to 100% of what is in the tank, and also a numerical readout of the number of inches in the tank. And there are four basically outputs, so they can do a lot of different things. So they might give you an early warning alarm at whatever level you set. It can give you an early warning, or it can have that Wi-Fi module that you saw. It can send an email to a supplier to start, to get a truck on the way to fill up the tank again. So the supplier knows before the customer knows actually that the tank is low. And then maybe if the tank gets a little lower, well then you have a local alarm for the customer. So anyway, 4 alarms altogether. And in fact, you can even configure it so it can fill the tanks automatically. I haven't had anyone use it for that purpose, but there's no reason why, it's very easy for us to do, to set it up so it just pumps up the tank to a level, and then when it gets down to a lower level, it pumps it up again. So very flexible logic, and and the radar sensor, I'll just talk a bit about that. So it's really easy to, I like the fact that it's non-contact, and it's actually, it's in some cases it really is way better than submersible sensors. For example, I had a customer who backed IBC contained tanks into a location, and instead of having to screw something into the tank every time, they just located the sensor above the IBC, and it senses right through the plastic, so you don't need to make any penetrations in the tank. The plastic is invisible to the radar sensor. So that's a really neat way. It saved them, it just makes it so much easier for a forklift to push the IBC into location, and then it knows. So so that's our level gauge. And as with everything, there's a video on it where I kind of go through it in more detail. But all right, let me close off by talking about our temperature controller. So this is our temperature controller, and it's sensing, using a thermocouple here, and basically just turns the, just controls around the set point here of 76. So it's really easy to set it to something else. Like if I set it for 78, let's say, then it'll, now it's calling for heat, and it's going to try to heat it up to 78 degrees. And as before, there's some set points, high and low temperature, but it's really important for, especially sophisticated factories with some automation. They like to have a stoplight, a go, no-go indication to an operator where if it's safe to go through a tank or process. And as before, of course, there's an alarm like all of our products have. This one has and I like this temperature controller because first of all, it's waterproof. That's kind of a must with all of our products. They got to be waterproof. And it has a 4 to 20 milliamp output, so this can log the temperatures as well, which is becoming more and more important, you know, for companies going forward. And so yeah, that's kind of a unique take on a temperature controller, and so this one's yeah, really compact. People like that, and it's half the price of comparable temperature controllers. People like that. So anyway, that's I see the high alarm set point. I said it was for 77, not 80. That's why it's going into alarm right now. But so anyway, that's something to know about as well. So I think that's oh, you know what? One other thing I have to just remembering. Vent caps. We sell a lot of these. The original purpose was for them to go on tanks, so tanks can breathe and not collapse. But they get used everywhere. I mean, everywhere, from hunting sheds to ventilate hunting sheds to Airstream trailers uses them for, I don't know, I guess ventilate their bathrooms. I mean, if you could think of it, people, I don't even know all the applications where these things go. It's just incredible how the market for vent caps has grown over the years. So anyway, it has the defining feature, I guess, is the screen inside. That's a kind of a unusual thing. There aren't two. I guess that's why people kind of come to us for vent caps, because polypropylene screen, it's all plastic and corrosion proof, which is what our customers want, and the screen keeps out insects. So, you know, for potable water especially, or rainwater harvesting, whatever, you got to have a screen that's fine enough to keep out insects, and so this one is. And they come in all sizes, you know, from I think, you know, from 1/2 inch to 14 inches in diameter, and different mounts. You know, you can see right there. There's a male thread and a slip mount. But so anyway, that's a significant area, you know, product for us that's you should know about. So yeah. So I guess that's all that I have to show you. Any questions on anything? Oh, and by the way, actually one more point I want to make. Everything you've seen today, we keep in stock. So if the customer asks, no need to ask, oh, is it in stock? It's always in stock, unless you're talking more than a couple of dozen. Well, then, we don't keep more than a couple. Well, the vent caps, yes, we keep hundreds of those, but you know, products like this, we're only going to probably have a dozen in stock. So you can pretty much figure we've always got a dozen of everything, but we have much more of the vent caps, because we have orders for 500 at a time, and so we have to keep more. So, all right. So I think that concludes what I have to show you guys. So,
Thank you.
all right. Any questions? Okay.
No,
Well,
thank you so much.
all right. Have a good day.
I love the videos online. That's just been